This is the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA, a weekly recap of your Eagles and news around the NFL. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's, tonight's show is brought to you by Rob's Automotive and Collision, BCWSA, Chickies and Pete's, Begley, Carlin and Mandio Law Firm, Penworth Financial Services, Penn Community Bank, The Capitol Grill, and Ventresca's LTD. We now go live to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report, presented by BCWSA. Now, here are your hosts, from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
All right. You're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. We are live from the glorious Chickies and Pete's here in Marlton, New Jersey. We're here from 6 to 7, so stop on by. And yes, your Philadelphia Eagles, they do it. They beat the Washington Commanders in Landover 29-18, and they win the NFC East in consecutive seasons, becoming the first team to accomplish that feat in 21 years when they themselves did that under Andy Reid. I'm Andrew DiCecco, Eagles beat reporter for InsideTheBirds.com, and alongside me, my guy, the great Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. Geoff, what'd you make of that game?
Well, first of all, as you just said, Andrew, this is amazing. Look here, a couple days before Christmas, we're at Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, and this is a packed house. This is amazing. You know, unfortunately, we were supposed to have Will Shipley be a guest. Things changed because the Eagles practiced today. Obviously, they don't normally practice on a Tuesday.
Sure.
They flip things up. But to see all the people here excited about the Eagles, excited about what's going on here, their late push, as you're alluding to, kind of shows you the great gravitational force and pull, right, between Inside the Birds and, of course, WBCB. So awesome to be here, awesome to see all these people. I hope everybody's happy and feeling better now after 2 consecutive wins than the 3 straight losses that nobody wants to think about at this moment. And I do think, Andrew, as we'll talk about over the course of this hour, as people continue to pile in here, are the Eagles getting right at the right time?
And before I don't want to neglect today's Festivus, so happy Festivus to those who observe.
And the rest of us.
And happy holidays to all those out there and everyone listening. We appreciate your support. But, Geoff, to answer your question, what a game that was, because I think that adequately demonstrated the Eagles' resilience. There was a lot of times in that game where you could see momentum shift, right? You look at the overthrow to A.J. Brown in the first quarter. It set up the 43-yard field goal from Jake Elliott. They missed the field goal. Yes. Marcus Mariota regains possession in optimal field position at the 33. He hits Terry McLaurin for a 40-yard strike.
Yep.
And then they score, Krosky Merritt, and then you start to wonder, is this going to sort of an unraveling here? But you got to credit the Eagles for taking that, regrouping, and getting things heading in the right direction. They looked a lot more functional from an offensive and defensive standpoint thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, if you would have told myself, if somebody would have told you that at halftime the Eagles would be losing to the Commanders, they would have a couple of missed field goals and not look very good offensively, I think people would have said, man, the Eagles from weeks 1 to 13, 14 are back. They're inconsistent. But then you look at the final score, and that last touchdown by Washington, sure, they earned it, but against Eagles backups, I mean, it was a lot more one-sided by the fourth quarter, right, because of what the Eagles were able to do in the second half. Flipped. It made you, and again, it's the Commanders. We're not going to overstate this, but right. How you felt about the team after the first half was these are the same old Eagles. How you felt about the team late in the third quarter and then in the fourth quarter, it was more like, they're finding it again, okay? They survived some adversity. They survived the missed field goals. They actually survived a couple, about 3 or 4 big plays that the Commanders were able to make, which is the difference between the Commanders bad and the Raiders bad, right? The Commanders are bad, but they have guys who can beat you like McLaurin and Debo, okay? For the Eagles to finally get that run game and Saquon Barkley really in a nice gear, late third, early fourth, and to be able to pull away, I thought if you look at the game in entirety, not just the first half, this looked more like the last Eagles of last year, the way they won, the style with which they played, than any time this year.
No, that's fair. And so I look at the games against the Raiders and the Commanders, and it's easy to look at it and say it's just those teams. Obviously, you can only play the teams that are on your schedule, but there are tangible things you can take away from that, right?
Yes.
You want to see a team like the Eagles, who are viewed, and rightfully so, among the NFL's elite, certainly in this season, where there's just a ton of parity across the NFL. But you want to see them really take a team to task like they did against the Raiders.
Yes.
Surrendering only 75 total yards. Against the Commanders, they really pulled away late in that game. And so you look at certain things that happened in those games, the defensive dominance against the Raiders, but against the Commanders, I was kind of curious whether or not we were going to see them revert back to the offensive philosophy that they were showcasing against the Chargers and the Raiders, and they sort of got away from that a little bit. Mm-hmm. They didn't go under center as much. There was a lot of shotgun. They got the running game going, but what were your initial reactions, or initial takeaways, I should say, from their offensive approach?
So I was very surprised. We know Cam Latu was out, okay? And we talked about this on the pregame show. I'm glad Inside the Birds really explained really well that when a player practices on Friday and is listed as questionable, 99% of the time they're going to play. But we've mentioned that with stingers, they're much trickier. You cannot just assume a guy is going to play, and obviously Latu did not play. Right, he was a full participant, correct?
I went back and looked at it when I was writing my injury report today, and the final practice, which was a Thursday, the week was all, he was a full participant.
Right.
He was limited the prior day, and then he went into the game with the official designation of questionable.
Correct. So we nailed that one. It's a tricky injury. So my thought process going into the game was maybe without Latu, you don't see what you saw against the Raiders, which was a clear ground and pound philosophy from the start. They came out with 3 tight ends on the field against the Raiders. They ran the ball, sometimes not successfully, but they didn't care. They were going to run the ball. And in this game, Andrew, and I don't know how much having Latu or not mattered, but they clearly had a different approach. Their approach was, let's be spread out, let's be empty, more probably than they have been all year.
Yeah.
And what that does is when you go spread empty, you make a defense declare, and you help your quarterback get clear, defined reads. And you saw after the fumble of the opening kickoff, second drive, and then third possession, really, the chain started to move from spread formations, shotgun formations. And, Andrew, I said to myself, what the heck happened? A week ago, they just wanted a ground and pound at 13 personnel, and then 2 weeks before that we saw under center, and now we're kind of seeing the old shotgun Eagles from, again, that's why I said this reminded me of last year, but it did work for them for the most part. I know at halftime, I believe they were 0 for 3 third down conversions.
Right,
there's still a clunkiness about the offense that's been there all year and will continue to be there. But I was, to answer your question, I was surprised that until I thought about it, that they were going to come out, spread, shotgun, throwing the ball the way they did. But, Andrew, the Commanders were so beat up in the secondary, it almost called for doing that, right? And eventually, here's what the Eagles want to do. They want to run the ball. They want to rediscover the ground game that made them Super Bowl champions. What I find that they're doing week to week, Andrew, and you probably see the same thing, is because of their struggles this year, they're trying different tactics to get to the same point. And against the Commanders, they had a different tactic by going spread, shotgun, no huddle. But by the third and fourth quarter, they got to where they wanted to be, which was running the ball and getting explosives from Saquon.
Yes. And
Tank.
Right. So that's interesting because I caught a little bit of Kevin Patullo's press conference on my ride in. He and Jalen Hurts spoke about 440 today. And he mentioned, we got away from the stuff we did in previous weeks, but we were trying to work some other things in and see if we can get that to work. I tend to think if they're able to kind of strike a balance between what they're able to execute in those games and what they did against the Commanders, that should be feasible enough to be able to provide some semblance of an offense that's going to be consistent. And I don't want to get too much further into the program without talking about the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. I thought Jalen, in the beginning of that game, there were some missed throws, and he seemed a little hesitant to pull the trigger. I talked about the throw to A.J. Brown. You got to hit that. He threw a nice ball to Devontae Smith. He dropped that touchdown, very uncharacteristic. Jalen comes back to him on the next play, and Devontae runs a beautiful route to shake free, scores a touchdown there. But there are plays to be made on the field, and that's something that I've seen and has been sort of a prevailing theme throughout the season. But I thought that Jalen Hurts really settled in and did some nice things as the game progressed.
Well, there's two things that I thought he did really well, and again, in a way that we were accustomed to seeing last year. One is because he hit on some of those passes you're referring to, on that, especially on that second and third drive, they were ahead of the sticks, and because there weren't as many penalties from the offensive line, they were able to get into their no huddle probably as well as they've done all year long. And when the Eagles get into no huddle, they're really tough because Jalen is excellent at deciding when to get to no huddle and then at what speed he wants to run no huddle at. They've got like 3 different no huddle speeds. Why they still have to wait until 0 seconds are on the clock before they snap the ball, even in no huddle, is beyond me or my pay grade. But that's one thing that I thought they did well. And the second thing, by being more spread, shotgun, is I think you saw the ability for Jalen to run as the receivers are taking the coverage down the field. The last 2 games, I believe he's ran for 48, 40 yards, which you can go through the first – there were times in the first 12, 13 weeks he wasn't even running for 10 yards.
Right,
so
except for the Dallas game.
Except the Dallas, yes, yeah. That was running for his life.
Yeah, and the running lanes were just there for the taking.
They were, because you're talking about season opener?
Yeah, season opener.
Dallas made a calculated mistake of rushing inside the tackles and leaving.
Instead of that umbrella type
yes,
of
yes,
like
which they changed in the
right.
second half. Right.
They definitely did.
So I thought that was good to get that part of their game going again, because I think if you just took like truth serum and just shot it into all the Eagles coaches, they would say, I wish we could be like last year. I wish we could be shotgun all the time. I wish we could get our run game going from shotgun. I think the under center that we've seen, the jumbo package, have helped make them more diversified, but it's stuff that they felt they've had to do because the other stuff wasn't working.
Exactly.
And I'm really curious about what this means for the next 2 weeks in the playoffs, because I'm on both sides of this. I think it's a great luxury when you can present yourself in different ways, because now a defense has to practice against 5 or 6 different formations that you've used at a time in a game, right? But at the same time, it's not really who the Eagles are. Right. And you wonder, can they? Didn't Jalen throw the ball 35, 40 times against the Commanders?
35.
I'll check it. They don't want that.
He threw it like 37 against the Chargers.
The Chargers, right. I don't think they want that. I think they would like to go back to a more balanced offense, but they're having trouble getting to that, you know?
Well, that's the issue. A lot of times this season, it's been the self-inflicted wounds, constantly playing from behind the sticks. You often hear Jalen Hurts and Kevin Patullo talk about that a lot. And I've gotten a lot of questions personally, why the change this late in the season? Well, there's always so many different cards you can play at this stage of the game, right? You're not going to swap out your personnel. When your offense is stagnant, when it's static like that, you have to find different ways, almost become comfortable being uncomfortable and try different things. And you said it best. It's now more diversified. They know they can do it and execute it, and you're not so one-dimensional. But they don't want to be a classic drop-back team, dropping back 35 times. That is not foundationally how this team is built.
Right. And what we have to find out, and I'm not going to put a value judgment on it now because who knows, but can they accomplish what they've accomplished with these new looks, whether it was the new passing concepts, under center, jumbo, whatever, shotgun spread against the Rams or the Seahawks? I don't know, because even along the way, while you've seen good things and you've seen bad things, right? They haven't had like 2 games against really good opponents where they've tried this new stuff and they've looked amazing. Honestly, the best the new concepts looked were against the Chargers, and they had 5 turnovers in that game.
Yes.
So I'm really interested. And I also wonder, if you go back to OTAs and training camp, every time Jalen Hurts or Kevin Patullo or Nick Sirianni held a press conference, do you remember how often they talked about the new iteration of their offense?
Sure.
Where was that for 10 weeks? It wasn't there. They only got to it because they had to.
Right.
So I'm wondering why they didn't start trying this stuff earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know if it wasn't because Jalen wasn't comfortable with it, if they thought they could lean on their their philosophical approach that had been so successful for a number of years. But
right.
clearly,
but I agree.
And teams catch up to that. And then you have to find a counter or at least be able to strike that balance. And I think the Eagles are starting to.
Right.
It's not the offense that you or I or Adam or any of us expected going into the season, but they're starting to show some signs of life.
Yeah, I just wonder, it's like they didn't listen to themselves. They knew they needed to evolve offensively, but didn't do it until they lost a bunch of games in a row and had really bad offenses.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to get into the injury situation. There's some good and some not so good for the Eagles, at least today, the first day that they had practice this week. But you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com.
Hey, it's Pete reminding you Chicky and Pete's gift cards are the gift that always fits and always gets returned. All holiday season long, buy a $50 Chicky and Pete's gift card and get a $10 Chicky and Pete's bonus card. Then follow our socials for the days of Chicky and Pete's double bonus days. Get 2 $10 bonus cards for every $50 you spend. Year after year, the gift that always fits and always gets returned. Gift cards from Chickies and Pete's.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms. The large flat, give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
Yes, indeed, that is the voice of Andrew DiCecco, myself, joined by the great Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. We are live here at Chickies and Pete's in Marlton. Come on out. It's lively. The food's great. What more can I say? You are listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. So today in Eagles land was the first practice of the week, and it had my schedule, thrown for a loop a little bit because I'm used to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so today, Vic Fangio spoke, Michael Clay spoke. Then they had practice at about 2:50 today. They were inside. Some really positive news in terms of the injuries. Who do I see walking into the practice bubble holding a helmet? Defensive tackle Jalen Carter, who missed the last 3 games after having a procedure on his shoulders. Great news there. Yep. No sign of Lane Johnson. So we still have to wait for the official injury report to be released later today to see. But for the time that we were there, 5 or 10 minutes, he wasn't there.
Right.
No Nakobe Dean today, he suffered a hamstring injury. I don't get the sense that it's anything severe. Vic Fangio today said that he thinks he's going to be iffy for this week, which would mean Jahad Campbell would be starting. And he was wearing a sleeve on his left leg, for what it's worth. But I did see him kind of walking around, talking to guys as they were in the stretch line, always in a good mood. And Cameron Latu, who, of course, missed Saturday's game with a stinger, he was there, had his helmet, was practicing. So seems like that's trending in a positive direction as well. And Landon Dickerson, I should also say, Geoff, was off to the side not practicing. It's also important to mention, last Tuesday they had a walkthrough. He was estimated as a non-participant. Then on Wednesday he didn't participate. He was listed with calf/rest. It's part of the maintenance plan that they have at this stage of the season with Landon. I don't know what this is, if it's the same thing or something something different, but I think right now you would take the Jalen Carter coming back to practice. That's a positive sign for the Eagles.
Oh, absolutely. It's a positive sign. Now, here's what's really interesting, right? I've talked to a couple of different medical professionals on the injections that you can get into your shoulder. That's why it's called procedures. You didn't have a surgery. And in the medical community, there's actually, from what I was told, no data that proves that the PRP injections help. People do it. I mean, there's a lot of different medical stuff that people do where there's not actual proof that it helps. So I don't know how much this is going to alleviate the discomfort. And he's about to play a grind of a game, right, if he plays against the Bills.
Sure.
And then you got the playoffs. So hopefully for him, just the time off. At very least, the time off maybe just eased up his shoulders. And maybe if it's the injections that he had, that really did help him. But he could have opted to have surgery, but then he would have been out a lot longer. Clearly, this is something he's going to have to take care of in the offseason. And I think what I'm getting at is it's probably reasonable to expect that he is not going to be Jalen Carter of last year. Not that you need it, especially with Jordan Davis playing the way he's playing, but I am very interested to see how he looks physically and how much Vic plays him if he plays against the Bills.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some of the other defensive tackles that have been called upon to fill that void in a moment, but what do you make of Nakobe Dean's absence, the hamstring injury, and what that could mean for Jahad Campbell? Because Jahad Campbell was playing well for a rookie, and Vic Fangio doesn't traditionally rotate his linebackers, so when Nakobe's playing as well as he is, it's hard to find the spot. Now, if you're asking me, I think there should be 12 to 15 snaps that you should be able to find for your first-round pick. Mm-hmm. But Nakobe Dean, playing at an extremely high level, what would your approach be with this? I would be surprised, I guess, if you hear Vic Fangio say iffy if he plays this week. But he's played so well that I think you almost want to implement a cautious approach.
Yeah, let me answer that question with a question, because I know you're a former high school athlete yourself. You ever tweak a hammy, even just tweak it?
Yeah, in track.
Do you believe that a hammy tweak is non-severe?
I don't.
I don't either.
I think there's different degrees, but for me, they're all bad.
They're bad, man. Maybe it's not Devontae Adams bad, right, for Nakobe, where he's grabbing and limping off. But I think hamstring injuries suck. So I didn't. As soon as he left and they said hammy, I knew he wouldn't be playing against the Bills. And I don't know if you win the game or if it really doesn't matter in Week 18, maybe you shouldn't play him then either, unless a seeding, of course, is up. But it's more important to have him for the playoffs than anything, especially with how well he's played. So I look at any hamstring injury as it sucks and it's severe, because if you don't give it the time, you know this as well as anyone, even if it's not bothering you that badly, if you don't give it the right time, you can aggravate it in a finger snap.
Sure you can, especially in the cold weather.
Yes.
Like they're going to experience in Buffalo, certainly.
Sure.
If it's a 30-degree day in Buffalo, that's like South Beach.
Yeah,
but,
and by the way, it ain't exactly been Punta Cana here either.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you look at Lane Johnson and Jalen Carter, if there's one of the two who you'd like to see get some work before the regular season draws to a close, for me it would be Jalen Carter, because he's had conditioning issues earlier in the season. Vic Fangio offered as much. And you want to see him sort of work his way back into the mix here and be able to play the lion's share of snaps as he was prior to that. Lane Johnson, I think you saw, I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks, but he looks like he's ready to go in great physical condition. Mm-hmm. I don't have as much concern about him being able to kind of step in without missing a beat.
I'm not concerned at all about Lane's conditioning, his physical conditioning, and he proved that during the first trip to the Super Bowl, the one they lost, when he had torn his adductor.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
He missed all that time, and he came back and even played on not 100% adductor and played well, for Lane Johnson especially. What my concern is that the Liz Frank for him is on the right foot, and that as a right tackle is your back plant foot. So it puts more stress than on your inside. I think your post leg, you would call it, or whatever. So I actually would like to see how if I'm a coach or a physician, right, or the team trainer, I'm kind of curious to see how he can handle those vertical sets where you're constantly, banging your foot, the mid part of your foot down into the ground. So I think it's important that he gets out there and shows that he can handle it. Now, it's very possible he can't, and he re-aggravates it, but that means to me it was going to be bound to happen anyway, because he never had surgery, right? It was a sprain that we know of, and he took the time off needed. But because of that physical stress he's going to keep putting on that back foot, I think it's important to get out there and see if he can handle it.
And then from a Bills perspective, Josh Allen, their great quarterback, they had a walkthrough today. He did not practice. He had the foot issue. I mean,
what is it with feet?
He'll play this week. I'd be shocked if he doesn't go. But also just a couple of other players who didn't go today. Matt Prater, their kicker, Jordan Phillips didn't go. And I mean, it's all going to be about Josh Allen. All eyes are going to be on him. But
they've had a ton of kicker injuries, haven't they?
They have.
Yeah.
They've had a bunch of injuries there. So, yeah, I mean, Jordan Poyer's another guy who didn't work today. So they're not exactly a clean bill of health over there.
No, it's week 17, right? I mean, there's very few teams who have a clean bill of health, but they've got, to me, they've got the guys that they need to go out and win a game. I know that they're always banged up. Now, Ed Oliver's situation is interesting to me. I haven't seen if they expect him to be able to come off IR and play yet. If he can, that's a huge addition for them because he is a very good player.
Absolutely. So I want to shift gears here because we were talking about defensive tackles, and I alluded to the players who had to step in the absence of Jalen Carter or take on elevated roles in some cases. Jordan Davis has been playing outstanding. Moro Jomo, 5 sacks on the season. He's been a high-quality player for that rotation. Brandon Graham picked up his 3rd sack in 9 total snaps.
Yep.
Had 7 against the Raiders, and then 2 snaps into that game picks up another one. He's done a nice job pinch hitting. And I think a guy who doesn't get talked about enough is Byron Young. Byron Young has played meaningful snaps in that rotation, 74 snaps over the past 3 games, 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
And I think when you look back on this season, you'll look at some of those unsung heroes who stepped in ably and were able to do that. But it all starts with Jordan Davis and Moro Jomo setting the tone and being able to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, I give Jordan Davis, man, a ton of credit. He had doubters, including, I'll call myself a doubter in that I wasn't sure they were going to they should have picked up the 5th-year option. I didn't know, losing the weight certainly helped, but it wasn't just about weight loss. It's about your hand technique, your explosion. That stuff helps, but there are plenty of people who lose weight, but that doesn't make them a better football player.
Right.
But I think it gave him the confidence to, as he moves faster, and then refined his hand. I think his hand usage has been the most improved thing I've seen. I mean, he put a swim move on before hitting Chris Rodriguez for a 3-yard loss.
Yep.
That was so explosive, Andrew, that I kept watching it on the All-22 over and over again because it was like a pa-bah, like bam, like he never moved like that until this year. I mean, when you can really swim that fast past a guard or a center, on top of being able to just bull rush one, then you're really starting to put it together. He is starting to put it together. I mean, is he Vita Vea level? Who knows? I wouldn't quite go that far because there have been some games this year where we've seen him play a little bit high or not have a huge impact.
Right.
But to play now the way he's playing, when Jalen Carter was out, I mean, you couldn't ask for a more step-up situation. I'm going to throw the caveat. If it was anybody but like the bad, Raiders and Commanders offensive line, although the Commanders offensive line is not bad. So I will give them credit for that. They're not that bad.
You've covered Brandon Graham early in his career.
Ever since he arrived.
Day one. He obviously loves the game. But I'm sure you knowing him as well as you do, could you have imagined him coming out of retirement at 37 years old and having 3 sacks and being tied with Nolan Smith? I think he's still tied with Nolan Smith.
I can imagine the first half of him coming out of retirement. I almost feel like he was sitting at home waiting with a bat phone. As soon as the Darius Smith retired and the edge rush wasn't getting home, it was like, come on, getting up. But he's in the complex every day. I'm sure, you've heard Vic saying he was saving that locker for him. So that part of it doesn't surprise me. The way he's impacted the game coming off not 1, but 2 tricep tears,
yes,
including in the Super Bowl, is shocking to me. I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and today Vic said, when asked, you going to try and talk him out of retirement again if those conversations come up? He goes, I might. He goes, maybe I'll be his agent.
Hey, you think Phillip Rivers was like, oh, heck, your Brandon Graham can do this?
Coming up next, we're going to get to this week's Penworth Financial Keys to the Game. But you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com.
Chickies and Pete's reminds you it's a wonderful life.
The last thing I remember, I was outside Chickie and Pete's.
Of course, George. Chickie and Pete's is Philadelphia's most decorated and award-winning restaurant.
I give each of the kids a Chickie and Pete's gift card. It's the gift that always fits.
It's almost as good as getting your wings.
Yeah, that's right, Clarence. You can get your wings at Chickie's, and crab fries and lobster pizza and a hot beef sandwich.
You see, George, it really is a wonderful place, this Chickie and Pete's.
Hey, BCWSA customers, this is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. My friends at BCWSA are committed to providing us with safe, reliable water and sewer services. They operate state-of-the-art treatment facilities, provide clean drinking water, and make much-needed investments to protect our environment and ensure a sustainable future. Learn how BCWSA's investments help grow and serve our communities. Visit bcwsa.net. BCWSA, prove it.
Rob's Automotive and Collision Center in Lower Bucks County is a full-service repair center with competitive prices, top-of-the-line products, and the finest auto body and mechanical repair technicians anywhere. Rob's makes repairing your car easy. Same-day service guaranteed. Whether it's an oil change, state inspection, or a mechanical issue, Rob's will have you in and out and on your way. 2700 Veterans Highway in Bristol, 215-826-9200 for 24-hour emergency towing. Call 215-826-0250.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
Yes, indeed. We are live here at Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey. I am Andrew DiCecco, Eagles beat reporter for InsideTheBirds.com, alongside the great Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds as well, and Philly Voice. We talked about the injuries and Jalen Carter returning to practice today, and that was this week's Penworth Financial Keys to the Game. The key to your financial future is Penworth Financial. Call them today at 267-997-4503 or visit penworth.com. So now, as we talked about, Geoff, we have to get to our keys to the game.
Sure.
And so when you look at this game right here, I think when you look at the running game that the Eagles just showcased against the Commanders, you saw glimpses of it against the Raiders. I think that they're starting to find something there with Saquon Barkley and Tank Bigsby, because yes, you could look at Saquon getting 48 yards on one run. He's run hard all season. I've maintained that he's the same guy. And so I look at this, and I think they're starting to turn the corner there in a positive way.
Yeah, they are. They're running. I think the last 3 games they've had over 100 yards total, which is good. I know their average hasn't always been great, but to your point, Andrew, I think anybody who felt that Saquon Barkley was wearing down, you didn't watch that game and see where you saw the opposite. I mean, his touchdown run was unbelievable because what was cool about it was the first 5 yards he was untouched. So you finally got some yards before contact back. But then 2 guys converged and he got real low, spun around, got out of it, and then bowled over 2 guys to get into the end zone. So it was like, oh, there you go. He ran tough. And then there was that really nice run where he should have been dropped for about 4-yard loss in the backfield, which shows you that the offensive line is still having some issues.
Yes.
But he made something out of nothing. And what I really find amazing, Andrew, is that I think right now Barkley is top 4 in attempts in the NFL. So despite the fact that he has not had the success that he had last year and the yards per carry average and and he's among the leaders in getting hit before contact, yards before contact, right? He's not worn down. I mean, they're giving him the ball. And I actually think they should give Bigsby like a series, just to give him a series.
I agree.
Every once in a while, because, even Josh Jacobs, as good as he is, they give the ball to Emmanuel Wilson. There are other number 1 running backs who just sit for a series. I don't know why they can't do that with Saquon. But I think that it's a good sign that he stayed healthy. He's running tough, running angry, like he said, and even despite the similar success of last year, he's among the top 5 ball carriers.
Yeah, so I look at the running game, reestablishing that, trying to get into some sort of a rhythm as one of the prominent keys to this game against the Buffalo Bills. Try and keep Josh Allen and that offense off the field.
Yes,
and
control possession.
Yeah, and you also, for me, I wonder how much that foot injury is going to impact Josh Allen. And we talked a lot about that. And by the way, that injury report that we spoke of was brought to you by the attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio. Contact them today for a free consultation at 215-806-3689. That's 215-806-3689. So the injury there, Geoff, to Josh Allen, I think is something that could really hinder what they try to do offensively because he's had to be Superman all season. I look at it as an opportunity for the Eagles to really hone in on their quarterback runs because we never really got a chance to see that again with Marcus Mariota because he got hurt. This to me before the postseason should be a good opportunity for the Eagles to be able to test themselves against a quarterback like that who is really lethal with his legs and he lowers his shoulder and really packs a punch.
Yeah, so he came out of the Browns game, right, and then came back in. It was hard to see if he was really impacted negatively by the foot. I mean, I'm sure it's hurting him. I'm sure he's going to get.
Sometimes it's that adrenaline where you start to feel the after effects days after.
That's a good point. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of medical. I remember when he had like the elbow issue and they thought it was a torn UCL, and then he came out the next game and threw like 4 touchdowns. So I'm going to assume that if Josh Allen is playing, he's not going to be that limited. And so I think that'll be I'm with you on the idea is you want to control the ball and control time possession. It's not something the Eagles have done well, even in some of their good games. I don't know if we talk about this on Inside the Data, on Inside the Birds with Sam Finkel, but the Eagles have been in 3rd and long more this year than they've been in 3rd and short and 3rd and medium combined. And it's like 25 snaps more. I mean, they live in 3rd and long, and even against the Commanders all first quarter they were. That's not going to be a successful recipe against the Bills. I don't think it will. You can't be going 3 and out 3 or 4 times and give them the ball because they will score.
And then another key, special teams, Geoff.
Oh.
Jake Elliott is about 50%. He is 50% on kicks of 50+. And for perspective, the league average is 67% from that distance.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's had his lowest field goal percentage of his career, dating back to when he was a rookie in 2017. And so you look at that, it's not an overreaction to have concern over the kicking game. If he has to make a kick in a critical moment, can he do it? Will that alter the Eagles' approach in how they attack some of those 4th and long situations?
Yeah.
So to me, I'm starting to think that it might because there's enough of a sample size there to have legitimate concern or skepticism that he's going to be able to come through for you when you need him. Although he has been money in the postseason, every year is unique.
It is. You also get the sense that this year that even in the play, like the gulf between the Eagles. Well, actually, I think we get the sense that there are better teams than the Eagles now. Yeah. Whereas at this time last year, you felt that the Eagles were clearly, at least from a 53-man roster standpoint, far ahead, right? So it feels like a game could come down to a kick or two. And, yeah, you need to know if Jake Elliott can make those kicks. And I do think this game against the Bills and the season finale are absolutely evaluation times for him, and it's not a lifetime achievement award.
You're right.
Any other kicker in the league who has missed as much as Jake Elliott has missed this year would at least have a competitor in camp, if not be replaced, right? So they can't, and Howie is an aggressive GM, you know that. I think he will definitely look at these 2 weeks as some kind of litmus test to see if he needs to make a move. And probably the only reason that there's not somebody in camp today is there's just not a whole lot of good, really dependable kickers out there to sign at this point. I mean, you got already a team like the Bills who have so many injuries and they're signing guys off the street. But, Andrew, the Eagles, to my knowledge, right, are the only team to ever, in the Super Bowl era, have 2 punters on their 53-man roster like they did a couple of years ago in 2022 with Sipos and with Ryan Kern, right?
That's right. Ryan Kern, yeah. Kern.
Right, okay.
Brett Kern.
I'm sorry, Brett Kern. Yeah, Brett Kern. So we know that the Eagles are not afraid to say, hey, we're not getting something here. We got to bring in somebody. It doesn't matter how late in the season. It doesn't matter if we have to unorthodoxly keep 2 punters on our 53 in a Super Bowl. So I don't think any option is closed right now for Howie.
And I should mention that there were no tryouts for the Eagles at all today.
Correct.
They didn't work out any kicker, any player. So
which is understandable, right?
Yeah, of course.
Again, you're not going to find somebody right now who's unemployed who you're going to say is way more dependable than Jake.
Exactly. So, you hear the calls for him to be replaced. That's just not how the Eagles operate. I think Jake Elliott, and you talk about it not being a Lifetime Achievement Award,
right?
Which I agree with. But I do believe in the same sense that he should have built up enough equity or warrant the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be able to kick his way out of it. Now, you do have to have a contingency plan, to your point, in the event that doesn't work. I mean, you could also sign a kicker to the practice squad and have somebody sort of waiting in the wings, a younger kicker.
Yes.
But it's not something you want to toggle with as you're approaching the postseason. This just seems to be occurring or unraveling, if you will, at the most inopportune time.
I think it's fair to say that the best solution possible, and the Eagles know this, is to figure it out with Jake Elliott, then try to have to bring in somebody else and figure it out with that guy. So I understand why they're going to support him, be in his corner, and work with him all this week to get him right, because that's a more logical and realistic and feasible scenario than signing Joe Schmo off the street and thinking he's going to come in and make a 52-yarder in the snow in Buffalo.
Yeah, Michael Clay pretty much said the approach is to love him up and, continue to support him. He's been around him for a number of years. He knows what makes him tick. What was odd was that all of the misses they looked like carbon copies of each other. They were all wide left.
Yeah. I know some people were surprised that he missed the 2 in a row because in a sense, the penalty made it so that you had a practice kick. But he was practicing missing.
Yeah.
That's the issue. It's not like he made the first one and then got to do it again and then missed the second one. He missed them the same exact way. But in some regard, Andrew, and I'm not a kickering expert at all, but when you see a guy miss the same way, it makes me think it's a slight mechanical.
Yes.
If he had pushed one left, pushed one right, and then came up short, then you got a whole other world of issues you got to work about, right? You're mechanically all over the map. Here, it's one specific way of miss.
Yeah, it looked like on one of them there might have been a high snap from Charlie Hewlett. And it's worth noting that Charlie Hewlett's he's been back for just a couple weeks now. Cal Adamitis filled in for him. Look, I'm not even going to begin. It would be disingenuous of me to try to break down the mechanics of kicking. I don't know enough about that to be able to speak on that. But when you see something happen like that, the first thing that sparked my mind was that it was mechanical.
Right. And the look on Jake's face almost suggested that, like he almost seemed confused. It's like when I play golf, I feel like I hit a shot, but then it slices, and I'm like, what's going on? But that's what I do. He actually makes his shot, so I think that's where the confusion is. Sometimes you don't realize that mechanical adjustment until you see it on the video and go through it yourself.
But it's funny because pretty much no one talks about special teams unless something goes wrong. As you know,
I know
I'm
you're
of the
Mr.
exception.
Special Teams. Yes.
I look at that, and so I could tell you that, and I'm sure you would agree. By and large, the special teams this season has been pretty effective.
Yeah.
Aside from the penalties, you look at Keely Ringo, Cam Latu, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Kylan Granson, Sidney Brown when he's not,
he made a great tackle on Mann's 49-yard punt.
He really has.
Good, yeah.
They had a snafu in the kick return game. That obviously can't happen.
Yep.
But
2, really.
Yeah, 2. You're right.
Yeah.
But I'm not concerned about that because that hasn't happened this season. And in the punt return area, it certainly has. But I think what they really need to kind of hone in on and dial in is the kicking aspect.
My belief, especially with turnovers or mistakes that you don't see like that, is, it's an 17-game season, and you're going to have a couple of games where bleep hits the fan, right?
Right.
Like when Matthew Stafford threw 3 picks against the Panthers a couple weeks ago and they lost that game, and everybody's like, what's going on? Oh, my God, the Rams aren't. No, Matt, that was his first interception since the Eagles game. It was like 15 weeks in between, right? Like every once in a while you have a clunker. It happens.
Yes. So, look, we're going to close things out by talking about the Pro Bowl nominations for the Eagles, and we're going to get into that defense. We talked a lot about the offense, Geoff, but I want to switch gears and talk about the
Popularity Bowl, you mean?
Yeah, the Popularity Bowl. Yeah, look, we'll talk about it, but you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. Looking for the best place to host your holiday party this season? Look no further than your neighborhood Chickies and Pete's. We offer a variety of party packages to make your holiday gathering merry and bright. Hosting your own party? Chickies comes to you with our to-go catering, complete with all your Chicky and Pete's favorites. Plus, add a hometown flair to any event with our Chickies and Pete's food truck, the Crab Fries Express. Your place or ours, take the stress out of the holidays with help from Chickies and Pete's.
When an Eagles player gets hurt, the team takes care of him. When you get hurt, the attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will take care of you. They understand that a severe accident can be a life-altering event. You need a reliable teammate to fight for you. The attorneys at Begley, Carlin, and Mandio will get you great results. And if there's no recovery, there's no fee. Contact them today at 215-750-0110 for a free consultation. 215-750-0110 for a reliable ally that's on your side.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms, the large flat-screen TVs, complimentary coffee and muffins, and free Wi-Fi. So even when you do have to stop, Rob's is there to make you feel right at home. Give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
Yes, indeed. We are live here from the great Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey. I'm Andrew DiCecco, Eagles beat reporter for InsideTheBirds.com, alongside the great Geoff Mosher.
Will you stop with the great? This is a great crowd, though. Look at these people.
It is.
They're fired up here in Marlton at Chickies and Pete's. Gotta love them.
It is. It is. And look, the Pro Bowl rosters were revealed today around 10 a.m., and the Eagles have 5 representatives, those being linebacker Zach Baun, defensive tackle Jalen Carter, cornerback Quinyon Mitchell, defensive back Cooper DeJean, and center Cam Jurgens. So I am a little confused about the Jalen Carter one because he's not having his best season, and he missed the 3 games.
Right.
Really 4. So he got kicked out of the first game. But he hasn't been the Jalen Carter that we've grown accustomed to seeing.
Correct.
And then Cam Jurgens, of course, we've talked a lot about him having the offseason back surgery and how long it really will take for him to get back to being himself. He hasn't been himself this season. So curiously, of all the Eagles offensive linemen, he was elected to the Pro Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, well-deserved. And you always look at it and say, they're playing at such a high level, and we watch the Eagles, so we're fixated on that solely. But if you're not watching the Eagles, you see the stats and maybe you get underwhelmed, or you kind of lose sight of what they've been able to do. Mm-hmm. But they have been dominant, especially Quinyon Mitchell this season, and it's nice to see that rewarded. So I thought that those 2 guys in year 2 getting elected to their Pro Bowl, it's a testament to them, but also the coaching and development with Christian Parker, the Eagles defensive backs coach, and cornerbacks coach Roy Anderson.
You know, the interesting thing about Vic Fangio's defense is, even though he doesn't blitz a whole lot, especially over the last 6 weeks, he's playing a lot more cover 1. He's playing a lot more man defense without blitzing, and that's just a sign of confidence that Quinyon and Cooper DeJean and Adoree Jackson's playing well enough. He just doesn't – he thinks he can – he doesn't feel like he has to play two safeties deep all the time to eliminate big plays. So if you take in account that they will start off with two safeties deep, but a lot of times an opponent will put like trips to the right, three receivers, something like that. That second safety will rotate toward the trip side, and that leaves Quinyon Mitchell basically in zero coverage, like by himself against the backside wide receiver.
Sure.
And that's a hard route to shut down. I mean, how often do we see A.J. Brown? Go back to like Alshon Jeffrey used to abuse the corner on those 1x3s, right?
Absolutely.
He's shutting them down, and that's a real testament. When your defensive coordinator basically says you don't need safety help and I'll just play man coverage, I'm not even blitzing, so I'm not even hurrying up your quarterback as much as I could, and I believe in you like that, that's the ultimate testament to how good you are. And I think Quinyon should be an All-Pro.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it's funny because Vic Fangio, when asked about Jordan Davis, he was among many, myself included, that believes he should have been given Pro Bowl recognition.
Yeah.
And he said, see, everybody and their mother's got to vote for this. He goes, they have to alter the committee, get a former general manager, a former executive, a former coach to really hone in if they really want to take it seriously.
Right.
And I think that was about as ringing of an endorsement as you're going to hear from Vic Fangio for Jordan Davis.
Yeah, absolutely, especially from Vic Fangio. I thought he was going to say, who cares? Because he's not an accolades guy. But the truth is that Jordan Davis will probably make it next year, even if he doesn't have as good of a year, because it's always – it's the popularity. It's what you did the year before, and Jordan Davis was not an elite defensive tackle the year before. But I guarantee you, no matter what happens next year, he'll make it because of what he's doing this year. It just seems like they're always a year late on these guys.
Yeah, and I think
like Jalen Carter, to your point, like he should have been. Was he a Pro Bowler last year? I think he was not a Pro Bowler, but he was an All-Pro.
He may have been an alternate, and he was an All-Pro as well.
Right.
Obviously, you and I don't have any horse in this race, but you would like to see a player who's playing at an elite level or an extremely high level be recognized for what they're able to do, because that matters to them, and it always matters a little bit more when you see that under that denotation underneath their name on that resume.
Sure.
And I think another player you can make a case for that was totally snubbed is punter Braden Mann. Who,
absolutely.
Friend of the show. We've had him on. We're going to try and have him on again before season's end. Tress Way is a great punter for the Washington Commanders, elected to his third Pro Bowl. But Braden Mann's numbers surpass that.
Absolutely. And I think he's also done a great job, not only just dropping him inside the 10 and the 20, but angle punting this year. Braden Mann's been – there were certain games earlier in the year where you thought Braden Mann was single-handedly keeping the Eagles in the game. They had so many 3-and-outs, Andrew, right? And he was out there half the time, but he was really pinning the other offense back well.
He was getting them out of jams, and field position matters. It's those hidden yards that you don't often hear. And I think that, if he doesn't get elected this year, you have to wonder when that'll ever happen.
Again, next year. He won't be as good, but he'll get it next year based on this year.
Who knows? Maybe Jordan Davis and/or Braden Mann will get All-Pro consideration. But let's flip it to the defense, right? Because and you and I have had this conversation after the Raiders game. I was really bullish on the defense, and I know context is very important looking at the opposition, but there's been moments of dominance this season. It wasn't just a blip. It wasn't just that it was the Raiders. I think getting someone into the mix like a Jalen Phillips, getting Nolan Smith back, you're going to be getting Jalen Carter back. Marcus Epps has settled things down next to Reed Blankenship, which I don't think is talked about enough, because when Reed Blankenship's playing next to a rookie safety and Drew Makuba, you're trying to juggle a million different things. You're not able to play freely. You have to account for the rookie and making sure he's being assignment sound. And they've also had some solid play at the second cornerback spot from Adoree Jackson. So it seems to me that the defense is starting to gel at the right time.
It is, and they're going to have a really interesting decision to make, maybe for the playoffs, if Andrew Makuba is ready to return, because
I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Probably not. An ankle fracture is a pretty big deal.
In fact, you heard Vic Fangio last week.
When asked,
he's eligible to come. He's like, just because he's eligible doesn't mean he's coming back. He goes, he's not coming back.
Yeah. Well, even if they made it to the Super Bowl, huh?
Well, maybe that might be different, because that might be like the far end of that
right.
timeline.
But by then you've missed so much time. Your conditioning really is, especially at that position, an issue. And Marcus Epps has played well. Now, you don't have as much athleticism at safety when you have Epps and Blankenship. I mean, that's not their calling card, and Makuba's a really good athlete. But you've got two of the just most savvy guys. They know how to line up. They know where to be. They make the – Epps sometimes reminds me of, like, the T.J. Edwards of Eagle safeties. Like, just – he may not be the greatest athlete, wasn't drafted, but he just knows where to be, knows how to play the position. Someone made this great point. It was Quentin Michael. He was on – this is why it's great to be an Inside the Birds Patreon member. He did our Ask an Eagle with us. He was talking about learning how to play at different speeds, especially at that position. And he said, unfortunately for Sidney Brown, he's only playing at one speed. And you hope that while he's on the bench playing special teams, he realizes that running 100 miles per hour at your target is not always the best way of approaching defense, right? And Epps is a person who may not run the fastest, but he knows when to dial it up, when to dial it down, and how to put yourself in position to make a play. And Sidney Brown's still learning that.
Yeah, Marcus is smart and instinctual, and those are things that Vic Fangio has lauded him for whenever asked about Marcus. And you're right, he's not the greatest athlete, but he is somebody who he's going to be in the right place.
Yep.
He's going to be fundamentally sound, assignment sound, and that matters. That carries a lot of weight in a Vic Fangio defense where there's a considerable amount of responsibility placed on safeties and linebackers. And they settle things down at safety, and they settle things down at punt returner. They're going those type of routes to make sure that those issues don't creep up in critical moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the defense really has played well. Now, I ask you this. You got to win. You're trying to win these two games. I mean, you're in, but you really want to also go into the postseason on a good note. The drop-off from Nakobe to Jihad Campbell isn't like bad because Jihad Campbell was playing well, but Nakobe brought a presence and a skill, especially when he blitzes the quarterback, that Jihad's still learning. And Nakobe changed games. He was blowing up running backs. They sent Jihad on the blitz, and McNichols actually did a pretty good job in pass pro. The only reason he got nabbed for holding on that play is because Mariota was running around the pocket, and McNichols basically had to turn around and just tackle the guy, right?
Right.
He doesn't yet channeled that speed to power on a blitz the way Nakobe does. So I think that's a little bit of a concern at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. And while we're on the subject of Nakobe Dean, man, you could argue that the defense sort of transformed or hit another gear when he was inserted as the starter.
I thought he could have made the Pro Bowl, and I wouldn't have disagreed with it. He's played great.
Yeah, by the way, you see Patrick Queen? He listed his top 5 linebackers. He put himself at 3. He put Nakobe at 5. He didn't have Zach Vaughn on his list.
That's interesting. Zach doesn't get enough respect.
I totally agree.
Because he came from nothing. He's not a first-round pick.
I totally agree with you. If you look at his numbers, and stats don't always tell the whole story, his numbers this season, aside from maybe the forced fumbles, are ahead of what he did in his all-pro season last year.
Yeah.
Sacks, interceptions, on pace for tackling. Phenomenal player. But Nakobe Dean is absolutely that tone setter that defense needs, and I think a lot of his mentality comes from – a lot of the defense's mentality comes from him. But I think they're going to have a big role in this game. But, man, I can't say enough about the crowd here at Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey.
Yeah, Marlton.
Great
job.
Thanks
Good
all.
crowd.
Thanks all for the support. Hope everybody has a happy holiday. And you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and seen live at WBCBsports.com. For Geoff Mosher, I'm Andrew DiCecco. Happy holidays, and we'll catch you next week.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB and on your FM dial at 107.3 W297CL